August 31, 1939, darkness fell over Europe without the peace it should have brought. In Berlin, the atmosphere was thick under the pale streetlights. Diplomats and politicians were still struggling in a desperate dance, trying to cling to the thin thread of peace. But deep down, everyone knew. Words had become useless. In the German border regions, the night concealed relentless preparation. Under the faint glow of flashlights, armored divisions waited silently, their massive war machines cloaked in night mist, ready to move. The air was heavy with the smell of grease and cigarette smoke. They were young men, some eager, but most silent, staring into the darkness where Poland lay. They did not know they were about to be the spearhead unleashing the greatest tragedy of mankind. It was a menacing silence, a silence assembled from steel and absolute will.
In Warsaw, people did not sleep. Although the radio stations still played gentle music and issued fabricated optimistic announcements, fear had seeped into the bones of the ancient city. Mothers hastily packed their most precious belongings. Men queued up outside shops, trying to hoard a little more food. In a dimly lit broadcast room, engineers and announcers double-checked their microphones and transmitters, knowing they might be the last voice of a nation. The light was just enough to see the sweat on their brows. The camera lingered on the face of a young woman, her eyes wide open, looking out at the sky where the stars still shone. A quiet beauty about to be torn apart. They no longer hoped for treaties, only trusted in courage.
In a secret headquarters, the final orders were transmitted. Fall Weiss, Case White, was not a campaign, but a death sentence for peace. There was no declaration of war, only the ruthless and decisive action. The officer transmitting the order was merely a silhouette under the desk lamp. The sound of the telex machine rattled ominously in the sealed room. On the map, thick red arrows pointed straight into the heart of Poland. This was the birth of Blitzkrieg, lightning war. The large screen focused only on the finger of the signalman, slightly trembling as he sent the irreversible signal. There was no joy, only the coldness of an unquestionable command. At 04:45 a.m., on the Westerplatte Peninsula, where a small Polish garrison guarded an armory, the first shot rang out. It was not an isolated rifle crack, but the furious roar of the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein. The heavy cannon fire tore through the quiet air. Polish soldiers awoke in shock, for a moment not understanding what was happening. A second later, they were in a fight. White smoke shrouded the sand and defensive emplacements. The sound of metal clashing. It was a brutal, precisely calculated attack designed to maximize surprise and devastation. Initial astonishment quickly turned into desperate, instinctive resistance. Further on, along the border, hundreds of thousands of German soldiers began to advance. The image of the first panzer columns rolling over the dew-soaked Polish fields carried a cold beauty. This was the war of the 20th century: speed, mechanization, and mercilessness. The camera shot from a low angle, focusing on the tank tracks crushing the earth. Thick exhaust smoke billowed up like a dark omen. Polish soldiers, more sparsely equipped, fired from small outposts, but their fire was like the buzzing of a mosquito against a storm. The face of a young, mud-caked Polish soldier, determined but utterly overwhelmed, was the focus. In one of the most tragic moments, Polish cavalry charged. They were not fools attacking tanks with sabers, but they were fighting infantry and mechanized reconnaissance units supporting the armor. The thunder of hooves, the flash of steel sabers. It was the collision of two military eras. Sweat and fear mixed. A wounded horse collapsed. A cavalryman fell, still gripping his saber, staring up at the sky, which was growing darker from the smoke. This uneven fight symbolized defiant spirit, fighting with everything you have, even when everything is against you. This sacrifice was a reminder that this nation would not easily yield.
The sense of collapse spread faster than the army. The main roads were flooded with panicked civilians. They loaded their most precious belongings onto carts, bicycles, or simple small trolleys, trying to escape the path of the German advance. Images of silent, weary crowds, eyes vacant, walking under the harsh sunlight. A mother tightly grasping her child's hand. The camera moved slowly over the empty eyes. The German Blitzkrieg was not only targeting the military, it aimed to shatter the social structure, sowing chaos and paralyzing the capacity for rear-line resistance. For the first time, civilians were a primary target of the war's tactic.
Hundreds of miles to the west, in London and Paris, meeting rooms were still lit. Ministers and diplomats debated, promising support, but concrete action was delayed. Light shone on the tired face of a diplomat, holding a telephone, his words choked. The hesitation of the West was a fatal factor. Every passing hour was another failure for Poland. The camera focused on the large wall clock. The minute hand crept forward, each tick carrying more bloodshed. The declaration of war had not yet been made, but the nature of the conflict had been defined.
The first night of the war, a Polish outpost had been taken. German soldiers rested amidst the ruins, mechanically eating their rations. A young German soldier removed his helmet, looking at a family photo in his wallet. This momentary pause did not lessen the sense of threat. He was not a monster, but a tool in a massive war machine. The camera swept over the abandoned belongings of the Polish soldiers, a cap, a half-written letter. The cold feeling of steel and the grimness of the first victory weighed upon everything. Night had fully fallen, but the air still echoed with the distant sound of tank engines and sporadic artillery fire. In the sky, German reconnaissance planes circled. Light from fires spreading from bombed cities illuminated the distance. The camera tilted up, showing a dark, heavy night sky, only ripped open by the streaks of flares. Peace was gone, replaced by the undeniable truth. Europe had entered a total war. September 1, 1939, was the day the world realized its breath had been held, and it would not be released for many years to come.